The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 28th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord, descending from heaven, came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. For fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He's not here, for he has been raised, as he said. Come, see the place where he lay, then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead. And indeed, he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. This is my message for you." So they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them and said, "Greetings!" And they came to him, took hold of his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please rest. All right. Can you say after me, "Goodbye, winter"? Yeah, oh man. Can we also say, "Hello, spring"? Yeah. Ooh, that winter was a doozy. It's good to get that one over. By the way, I'd like to thank the Beatles and George Harrison for helping out with the music for the video. And thank you, Chris, for the help making that movie. Thank you very much. Well, after months now of being indoors, it's time that God's handiwork, nature, the natural world is beckoning, saying, "Come outside and come alive." About 10 years ago, my dad came home with a spool of string. Now, when I say string, this was some really, really strong string. Even as an adult, if I took a hold of it, I could not break it. You needed a scissors to cut this stuff. And there was so much wound on that spool, I don't know, a mile. It was just unbelievable. So we had that big spool of string, and I was wondering, what are we going to do with that? And so then he kind of clears off the kitchen floor, puts 2 sticks down on the floor, and begins making a kite. Used some kind of paper that we had around the house, kind of put it all together, and then he and I headed out to a really big open space in our town, and the air was crisp. We still had our coats on and gloves. My job was to hold the spool. He had a big screwdriver that went through the spool, and so I was supposed to stand there like this, and then he with his gloves would feed out the line, and he fed it out and fed it out and that kite just began to go up and up and up. You know, it just seemed to almost disappear. It was way, way, way up there in the heavens. And it was way up there, but the joy, let me tell you, the joy was right down in here. Right down in here. Now, I read recently that someone said, "Tell me what someone celebrates, and I'll tell you who they are." We celebrate that Christ is risen. Christ is alive. Now, some people say he's not. Okay? Some people say he's not. So I guess it comes down to this. He's either risen or he's not. And if he is, and that's where we're coming from, folks, and if he is risen, wow. Wow. That just changes everything. And in the experience of millions and billions of people through the centuries, he lives. He lives. And this faith is what surrounds us when we're in the church. And this faith is out there in the world, in others that we encounter. And this faith can and should kind of be a wellspring within us to help us meet life and to help us enjoy this life. It's intended to radiate from within, but I guess if we're honest, we'd have to say, not always. Our faith experience, like a kite that has come crashing down, can get stuck and become troubled and not feel very helpful. After the death of Jesus, the two Marys, as they stood there thinking about his death, his cruel death, must have felt kind of like broken, shattered kites. Brokenhearted, fearing the future. And so then, wonderfully, an angel is sent, someone with a message for them. And the message is, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. He has been raised. You'll see him in Galilee. Go quickly. Tell the others. Tell the others. And then suddenly, before them, before they could make a move to Galilee, there's Jesus. Jesus meets them and says, "Hi!" Now, the translation we had this morning said, "Greetings." Well, I guess that's one way to say it, but I think today we'd say, "Hi!" Jesus says hello to them and begins his ministry, begins giving them a taste of his resurrected life. Now, when you have been stuck in a dry winter of the soul, I guess it could be called, has the Lord brought you a new path? A stone, maybe, that you couldn't roll away yourself, a problem that you could not get a handle on, is all of a sudden moved, it seems, for you. And spring returns to your soul. These are moments to remember and to call back from time to time, remembering how good God has been to you. Sometimes other people's moments can kind of do the same thing for us. Now, a few years back, I was a pastor in an old church that had rafters. Well, I guess we've got some rafters pretty much the same as we had in that other church. Pretty strong beams up there. Very impressive. I like that. It was a great place to have weddings. And we were going to have a wedding planned in the sanctuary. And we'd set the date and we were approaching it. But the bride came to me with an urgent request. Could we move the wedding forward about a month? Her grandfather, who she very much wanted to be at her wedding, his health was failing, and they didn't think he could last much more than a month. And so we rescheduled the wedding, and unfortunately, days before the wedding, her grandfather passed away. And so, during the wedding, there was such a mixture of feelings. The happiness for the new couple, but the sadness that her grandfather, who she wanted so desperately to be there for that day, was not there. At the end of the service, as happens many times at weddings, the ushers began to usher people out of the pews and down the center aisle, one pew at a time. And it came to one young mother and her toddler, and everybody's watching when you're being ushered out this way, and her son was not coming. And the mother was feeling embarrassed, and she began to kind of yank. Let's tell it like it is. She was yanking on his arm, and he's going like this. And he does not want to move. Finally, she's bigger. She overpowers him in frustration, carries him down the center aisle, and off they go to the wedding reception. She's kind of embarrassed about that scene. And so at the reception, she's talking to someone else about her child that wouldn't come out of the pew. And she learns that on the other side of the church, from where she was seated, there was another toddler that did the same thing, pointing up to the ceiling. And so these two moms found each other with their kids and began trying to piece together what was going on, and it finally became clear. Those toddlers both saw, one from one side of the church, one from the other side of the church, no communication between them, saw Grandpa up there enjoying the wedding. I heard that, the bride heard that, made our day. Now, if it was one toddler on one side of the church, I'd be pretty interested. Two toddlers? Two sides of the church? I'm real interested. The resurrection shows itself, life shows itself in so many different ways. Not always in dramatic ways like that, but definitely shows itself. What we celebrate reminds us of who we are. We are Easter people. People who've been touched by the resurrection. People who've been baptized into life with the Lord. A strength that we can find through faith in all of these situations that we find ourselves in. Oftentimes challenging situations. We have our times when we're down. People of faith have times when they're down. And in one way or another, our risen Christ comes to us, often through faithful friends. And suddenly, in surprising ways, we get the message, we don't need to be afraid, for Christ himself is with us. He's risen. He's risen indeed. Happy, blessed Easter to you and to those you love. And maybe, just maybe, you're going to get a chance to be an angel to someone and to bring them the message, you don't have to be afraid. Christ is with us right now. Amen. God bless you. Happy Easter.